We've all been there. That terrifying moment when you're forced to face a blank page, an empty bank account, or a completely new chapter in life, and the thought that runs through your mind is, where do I even begin? Starting from scratch. It's one of the most intimidating challenges anyone can face, but it's also one of the most liberating. The idea of starting over carries a lot of fear. Maybe you've been fired from a job, a relationship ended, or perhaps you've just reached a point in your life where you realize the path you're on is no longer serving you. Whatever the reason, standing at the crossroads of the unknown can paralyze even the most confident among us. But here's the truth. Most people don't tell you. Starting from scratch doesn't mean starting with nothing. Every lesson you've learned, every experience you've had, good or bad, becomes the foundation for what's next. Consider this. Imagine you're an artist standing in front of a blank canvas. You might be overwhelmed by the emptiness, not knowing where to start. But that blank canvas isn't your enemy. It's a world of possibilities. You're free to paint anything you want without the burden of past mistakes, without the pressure of following someone else's blueprint. Today, we're going to take a journey into the mindset and steps needed to start from scratch. Whether you're trying to rebuild a business, create a new career path, or reinvent your personal life, by the end of this, you'll have the tools you need to turn that blank slate into a masterpiece. But first, let's confront the elephant in the room. The fear of starting over. Why is it so terrifying? Why does the idea of beginning from zero fill us with so much dread? The answer lies in the way our minds are wired. Fear is a natural response to uncertainty. Our brains are hardwired to seek comfort and predictability. When you start over, especially after a failure, your brain associates that new beginning with danger and risk. Consider this. Your mind is like a computer. Over time, it gathers data, builds patterns, and creates routines. When you're forced to start from scratch, it's like you're hitting the reset button on that system. And the brain, in its quest for survival, hates resets. It wants the comfort of the known, even if the known isn't serving you anymore. The reason starting from scratch feels overwhelming is because we're biologically programmed to avoid it. But here's the key to overcoming that. Reframe your thinking. Instead of viewing it as losing everything, see it as gaining the freedom to create something new. And that's where the power lies. Think about it. If you've lost a job, for instance, you're not tied down by the limitations of that position anymore. If a relationship ended, you're not confined by the dynamics of that relationship. In every setback, there's hidden freedom. You just have to change your perspective to see it. Let's dig deeper into this concept of the blank slate. Starting from scratch means different things to different people. For some, it's about rebuilding their lives after a failure or loss. For others, it's the beginning of a new adventure, launching a business, a creative project, or even a lifestyle change. Whatever your situation is, I want you to understand one fundamental truth. Starting from scratch doesn't mean you're starting with nothing. Your experiences, insights, and even failures have equipped you with knowledge and skills that you can leverage to build something new. You're not the same person you were before, you've evolved. Consider some of the greatest stories of success and triumph. People like Steve Jobs, who was fired from Apple, only to return and turn it into one of the most valuable companies in the world. Or think about J.K. Rowling, who went from being a single mother living on welfare to creating the Harry Potter series, a global phenomenon. These individuals didn't just start from scratch, they started from experience. They used their past not as a burden, but as a stepping stone. There's a concept in Stoic philosophy called premeditatio malorum, which means premeditation of evils. The Stoics believed that by contemplating worst-case scenarios, they could diminish their fear of them. The idea was simple. If you've already thought through the worst thing that could happen, you're no longer paralyzed by the fear of it. When you start from scratch, fear is inevitable. You're stepping into the unknown. But here's the secret. The void isn't as terrifying as it seems. Instead of being overwhelmed by uncertainty, embrace it. This is the first critical mindset shift. Once you stop resisting the unknown and instead view it as a playground for growth and opportunity, you strip it of its power over you. Think about the metaphor of a phoenix. It's a mythical bird that rises from its ashes. Every time it's burned down, it's reborn, stronger and more powerful than before. The same applies to you. Whatever ashes you're standing in now are just the beginnings of your rebirth. So how do you embrace the void? Start by acknowledging where you are without judgment. This means accepting that you might be at rock bottom, or that you're standing on an uncertain ground, but without letting shame or frustration consume you. Accept the reality of your current situation, because only then can you begin to change it. By accepting where you are, you eliminate resistance. And resistance is what causes most of the pain we experience in the face of starting from scratch. It's not the situation itself that's painful, it's the way we resist it. The moment you accept your present circumstances, you reclaim your power. I want you to remember this. The unknown is where all the growth happens. Every great discovery, every innovation, every breakthrough in human history has come from stepping into the unknown, and you are no different. The void you're standing on the edge of is the same void that great thinkers, creators, and leaders have faced before you. Now that we've embraced the void, it's time to get practical. One of the biggest reasons people get overwhelmed when starting from scratch is that they see the end goal, the mountain, so to speak, and they're paralyzed by how far away it seems. Here's a secret that successful people understand. You don't climb a mountain in one leap. You climb it step by step. But most people make the mistake of focusing only on the summit. They think about the end result. Whether it's building a thriving business, becoming financially stable, or achieving a personal milestone. They get so caught up in how far they have to go that they fail to take the first step. Imagine you're trying to run a marathon. If you've never run before, the idea of running 26.2 miles is daunting. But what if, instead of focusing on the marathon, you focused on just running 1 mile? And once you've run that mile, you focus on the next mile. Over time, you'll build endurance, and before you know it, you're capable of running the full distance. This principle applies to every goal, no matter how big or small. Let's say your goal is to start a business. Instead of being overwhelmed by the idea of creating a company from the ground up, break it down into smaller steps. Start by doing research. Then, write down your business plan. Then, set up a website. Each of these steps is manageable on its own, and together, they will lead to your end goal. Think about someone like Jeff Bezos. When he first started Amazon, he didn't launch the massive corporation it is today overnight. He started small. His first focus was selling books online. Over time, he expanded into other products and services. But if he had tried to launch the Amazon we know today from day one, it would have been overwhelming. He broke the process down, step by step, building momentum as he went. Breaking down your goal into smaller, manageable tasks not only makes it less overwhelming, but also gives you a sense of accomplishment along the way. Every time you complete one small step, you gain confidence and momentum, which fuels your progress toward the larger goal. Here's your action step. Write down your goal and then break it down into the smallest possible steps. What can you do today, right now, that will move you closer to your goal? Even if it's something as small as sending an email or making a phone call, take that first step. Then, focus on the next one. When starting from scratch, one of the greatest challenges you'll face isn't external, it's internal. The doubts, the fears, the second guessing, all of these thoughts come from inside you, but there's something even more dangerous: the influence of outside voices. The truth is, when you're trying to build something from nothing, the opinions of others can be the most distracting thing in the world, and often, those opinions are rooted in fear or misunderstanding. You see, the people around you may not fully understand your vision. They might not see what you see. They might not believe in your abilities the way you do. And that's okay. It's not their journey, it's yours. But here's the problem. If you start listening to those voices, if you allow their doubts to become your own, you'll lose sight of your path. You'll hesitate. You'll question every decision you make, and in that hesitation, you'll lose momentum. That's why it's so important to silence the noise. I want you to remember this: your path is your own. It's not for others to understand or approve of. It's not about pleasing everyone around you. It's about building something meaningful to you. And that means tuning out the opinions that don't serve you. This doesn't mean you shouldn't seek advice or feedback, but be selective about whose advice you take to heart. Seek out mentors who have walked the path before you. Surround yourself with people who lift you up, not tear you down. But at the end of the day, the most important voice to listen to is your own. Next time you're faced with a decision, I want you to try something. Before asking for anyone's opinion, sit quietly for a moment and listen to your own intuition. Ask yourself, what do I really want? What feels right for me? Trust that inner voice. It knows the way forward. Now let's talk about the rebuilding process. When you start from scratch, it's tempting to rush into action. You feel like you need to catch up, to make up for lost time, to immediately see results. But here's a critical truth. Building something meaningful takes time. This is where patience and perseverance come into play. When you're starting from scratch, you're in a unique position. You get to design your future step by step, but you also need to recognize that greatness doesn't happen overnight. Let's look at an example from nature. Think about a forest after a wildfire. At first, it seems like all is lost. The trees are burned, the ground is scorched, and everything appears to be destroyed. But over time, new life begins to emerge. Seeds that were once dormant in the soil start to grow. The forest begins to regenerate, stronger and more resilient than before. Starting from scratch is much like that. It might feel like you're standing in the ashes of what once was. But within those ashes lies the potential for something even greater to emerge. Your task is to be patient, to nurture that potential, and to allow it to grow over time. Remember, every great achievement is built on a foundation of small, consistent actions. You may not see the results right away. You may not feel like you're making progress, but every step you take, every bit of effort you put in is building towards something bigger. This is where many people give up. They expect immediate results, and when they don't see them, they get discouraged. But the key to success is persistence. It's about showing up every day, even when it feels like nothing is happening. It's about trusting the process, even when the results are slow to appear. One of the best ways to maintain your motivation while starting from scratch is to celebrate small wins along the way. These small victories may seem insignificant in the moment, but they're crucial for building momentum and keeping you motivated. Think about it like this. When you're climbing a mountain, you don't just focus on the peak. If you did, you'd quickly get overwhelmed and exhausted. Instead, You focus on reaching the next milestone, the next ledge, the next ridge. Each of these milestones represents progress, and by celebrating them, you give yourself the energy and motivation to keep going. The same principle applies to any goal you're working toward. Whether you're starting a business, writing a book, or making a major life change, break your goal down into smaller milestones. Then, celebrate each one as you achieve it. Let's say you're starting a new fitness journey. Your ultimate goal might be to lose 50 pounds or run a marathon. But instead of focusing solely on that end goal, celebrate the small wins along the way. Maybe it's losing your first 5 pounds or running your first mile without stopping. Each of these victories is a step toward your larger goal, and they deserve to be celebrated. By focusing on small wins, you build confidence. You prove to yourself that progress is possible, and with each small win, you gain the momentum to keep pushing forward. Here's your next step. Identify your small wins. Whatever goal you're working on, break it down into smaller tasks or milestones. Then, each time you reach one, take a moment to acknowledge your progress. Reflect on how far you've come and use that as fuel to keep going. Now let's talk about failure. It's a topic most people want to avoid, but it's one of the most important parts of the journey when you're starting from scratch. Let's get one thing clear. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of success. No one who has achieved great things has done so without experiencing failure along the way. When you're starting from scratch, failure is inevitable. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to encounter setbacks. But here's the thing. Every failure is an opportunity to learn. Every mistake brings you one step closer to getting it right. Think about Thomas Edison's famous quote, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's the mindset you need to adopt when starting from scratch. Each failure is simply a lesson, an opportunity to refine your approach and get closer to success. Let's look at the world of entrepreneurship. Some of the most successful business leaders in history have experienced major failures before finding success. Take Elon Musk, for example. Before Tesla and SpaceX became household names, Musk faced multiple failures and near financial ruin. His early companies struggled, and many of his projects were on the brink of collapse. But instead of giving up, he used those failures as learning experiences. He refined his strategies, adjusted his approach, and ultimately built two of the most innovative companies in the world. The same principle applies to you. When you experience failure, don't view it as a beacon that you should quit. Instead, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I adjust my approach? Each failure brings you one step closer to success, if you're willing to learn from it. One of the most valuable qualities you can develop when starting from scratch is resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks, to keep going even when things get tough, and to maintain your focus and determination in the face of challenges. When you start from scratch, resilience becomes your superpower. It's the trait that will carry you through the tough times and help you stay committed to your vision. But here's the thing. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's a skill that you can develop and strengthen over time. So how do you build resilience? It starts with shifting your mindset. Instead of seeing challenges as obstacles, start viewing them as opportunities for growth. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to strengthen your resilience muscle. The more you push through adversity, the stronger you become. One of the greatest misconceptions about starting from scratch is the idea that success has to come quickly. We live in a culture that glorifies overnight success, where people are celebrated for achieving massive results in a short amount of time. But the reality is, true success is rarely overnight. Most successful people have spent years, sometimes decades, building their craft, honing their skills, and working toward their goals. They've learned to play the long game. When you're starting from scratch, it's essential to adopt this long-term mindset. Don't get discouraged if you don't see immediate results. Focus on consistent progress over time. Focus on building something that lasts. Here's a secret. The real reward isn't the end result. The real reward is who you become along the way. Every challenge you overcome, every skill you develop, every bit of progress you make, it's all part of the journey. And that journey is where the true fulfillment lies. And there you have it, the ultimate blueprint for starting from scratch. It's a journey that begins with a blank slate, filled with uncertainty and fear, but also immense possibility. You've learned that starting over isn't about losing everything. It's about leveraging your past, embracing the unknown, and taking small, actionable steps towards your vision. Remember, the road ahead won't always be easy. There will be setbacks, failures, and moments of doubt. But it's through resilience, patience, and persistence that you will rise. Every step you take, every small victory you celebrate brings you closer to the life you want to create. So as you stand at your own crossroads, take a deep breath, silence the noise, and trust your own voice. Your journey is uniquely yours, and the possibilities are endless. Keep going, keep building, and one day you'll look back and realize that from the ashes, you've created a masterpiece. If you found this video helpful and inspiring, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, where we dive deep into personal growth, mindset shifts, and practical steps for achieving your goals. And hey, if you know someone who's standing at the edge of their own blank slate, share this video with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear today. Also, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know what starting from scratch means to you. Have you gone through a major life reset? What's your next big step? Your insights and stories can inspire others on their journey too. So, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update, and stay connected with this amazing community. Let's continue to grow together and build something extraordinary, one step at a time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.